most famously, the ancient Greeks have written endlessly about the pursuit of the good life. There's nothing that gnaws at the pit of your stomach more than, retroactive regret, right? And so really try to live your life, and there's a term actually, it's called anticipatory regret. Anticipate what your future regret might look like, and then live your life in a way that tries to minimize that. Grab life by the horns of the bull, so to speak, and don't regret, because that gnaws at your spirit.
Today, I'm joined with one of the most featured men on the Joe Rogan Experience, Dr. Gad Saad, author of the book, The Parasitic Mind, and also a man who uses evolutionary psychology and the crossover between consumer behavior to deliver his teachings. Today's video is about quantifying happiness. I'm your host, Jordan Mulligan. Let's dive into the video. What is happiness? Like, how do you quantify it?
Right, it's hard to quantify. I mean, there are psychometric tests that we could give people that measures what your contentment score is, or your well-being score, or your happiness score versus mine, to see who's more. And of course, probably of all topics that one could philosophize about, the one that has been most written about is happiness. The ancient Greeks, not just the ancient Greeks, but most famously the ancient Greeks have written endlessly about the pursuit of the good life. Almost every ancient Greek philosopher has weighed in on that. So one thing you might ask is, okay, what's another book going to say about that? Well, it's my unique life experiences that I'm bringing to the table, coupled with the science to back it up, right? So that's the unique experiences, right? I only lived through that pomegranate story that I said earlier. So there are unique insights that hopefully I can bring to the table. It's not, but unlike other people who operate within that sphere, I'm humble enough to not oversell the book, meaning it's not implement these 8 steps and I promise you a guaranteed life. All that I can say is, for each of those possible things that I'm prescribing, you increase your likelihood of being happy if you can adopt each of these. Right? So it's not a guaranteed recipe and a guaranteed prescription for immortal happiness, but people have wisdom, people have knowledge, people live through certain experiences that they say, I think I can offer you some good, valuable advice as to, how you can go from point A to point B, where point B is a happier state. And so it is a tough thing to do, and tons has been written on it, but I think I've brought quite a few new nuggets to the story.
Looking from the outside, not even this generation, but at the moment, what do you see as the biggest obstacle for the pursuit of happiness for people?
Wow. I mean, I think there are it's tough to say the singular one, but I think I could actually answer it. So in the way the chapters are structured in my next book, the happiness book, is one of the chapters deals with the 2 most important decisions that you can make.
Today's video was made possible by Mulliganbrothers.com, where you can buy the Inspire Change t-shirts and hoodies with the link in the description. But also the new Momentum Mori poster has just dropped. A poster that is a reminder that you are mortal. It has 80 years worth of tiny little boxes that you fill in that represent a week of your life. Mine is filled up to 30 years. And it constantly reminds me that I could die tomorrow and I better live my life to the fullest. And it does exactly that. So if you want to be reminded that you're gonna die, head over to Mulliganbrothers.com to buy the poster. But before that, let's dive back into this amazing video with Dr. Gad Saad.
That can either impart a lot of happiness on you or misery. And then the remaining chapters are mindsets that you can adopt in the pursuit of happiness. So I think that chapter on what are the 2 decisions that you could make, that either bring you happiness or misery, speak to your question. Can you guess what those 2 decisions are? Do you want to?
Not at all, yeah.
So number 1, choosing the right spouse, and number 2, choosing the right job or profession. And there's nothing magical about why those 2 are the most important. It's because that's where you spend much of your life, right? So if when I wake up in the morning and when I go to bed at night, the person next to me is someone that I really like, I'm on my way to being happy. If now between the waking up with that person and the sleeping at night with that person, what happens in the day, my job, I'm also going, oh, this is exciting. Oh, I'm talking to the Mulligan brothers today. Looks like a nice opportunity. I'm excited. Then I'm talking to Matt Letizier later. Then I'm going to work on some academic paper between those. There's a lot of excitement. Well, then I'm likely to be happy, right? A week ago, I didn't know who you were. A week later, here we are sitting in an Airbnb having this chat. So there is an endless number of ways by which I feel fulfilled in my professional life because of the profession that I chose. Now, there were elements to my profession that are unique to me, right? Most professors are not sitting with the Mulligan brothers because I opened myself up to many other opportunities. I was probably one of the first, maybe the first, or certainly the main recurring professor on Joe Rogan. There's been a few others now because I didn't view it, too cheap to go and speak to non-academics, right? So I live my life in such a way that my professional trajectory is one that brings me great happiness. Now, you might say, okay, well, but what is the secret? How can I know what's going to make me happy? How can I know whether the person that I choose, I mean, we all start off our marriage hoping that it will last forever, and then 50+% end up in divorce. So how can we know? Well, there is no absolute guaranteed prescription, but there are certainly a lot of rules of thumbs, let's say in choosing the optimal spouse for you, that will either greatly increase your likelihood of success or greatly reduce it. So here is one. So there are two, if you like, truism when it comes to, birds of a feather flock together or opposites attract. What makes for a better relationship? When you choose someone who is as similar to you as possible, or if you choose someone who is different from you, so you complement each other. And the unequivocal research findings are that for long-term success of a relationship, like a marriage, birds of a feather flock together. Now you might say, well, but on which metric should we be similar? Your life values, your goals, your belief systems, right? So if you choose some, right? We often are very sexually attracted to someone, even though the reality is we have very little in common with, but yet we are blind to the stuff that we are different on, because for now, our hormonal drivers, our libidinal drivers are driving the train. But guess what? 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years into that marriage, I can assure you that those hormonal drivers, not that you're not going to be attracted to your partner anymore, but they're not going to be the same. You're not going to get the same butterflies in your pit of your stomach. You're not going to get skin conductivity when you see them. There'll be something else that comes. There'll be contentment in seeing them. There'll be serotonin release. You're happy when you see this person, right? I go out there, fight the world, but then when I go home, there's the beautiful smile of my wife there. So there are rules of thumbs that I can instantiate that increase my chances of being happy with my wife, with my spouse, or my job. So if nothing else, the absolute best predictors of happiness in my view, pick the right spouse, pick the right job.
If you could give one piece of advice to a younger version of yourself, or just a young person growing up right now, what would it be?
I would say, which actually is one of the chapters in the happiness book, is try to live your life in such a way that you minimize the future prospect of regret. So what you don't want to do is wake up when you're my age now and say, I don't know why I ever became an accountant, because I did it because my dad said it was the right thing to do, and I come from a family of accountants, but I always wanted to be an artist. I always wanted to be a physician. So there's nothing that gnaws at the pit of your stomach more than, retroactive regret, right? And so really try to live your life, and there's a term actually, it's called anticipatory regret. Anticipate what your future regret might look like, and then live your life in a way that tries to minimize that. So for example, in my case, even though I had very little power in controlling it, my biggest regret, and certainly whenever the World Cup comes around, is that I never had the fortune of knowing what it is to step on a field when the entire world is there watching and for you to perform on a world stage. I so regret that in my life I will never, the most I've played in front of is maybe 2,000 people. So the idea of playing in front of 100,000 crowd seems so magical and mystical to me. I regret that I never had the opportunity to do that. So live your life in a way, grab life by the horns of the bull, so to speak, and don't regret, because that gnaws at your spirit.
Thank you so much to Dr. Gad Saad for this. If you want to buy his book, I'll put the link down in the description. And if you're an Audible member, you can also get The Parasitic Mind on audible.com with the link in the description. And I believe it's free. It was free for myself anyway, and I listened to the book. He has some fascinating stories in there about his own life and his own journey. For me, he's a very outspoken person, very, very opinionated person. But the intersection of evolutionary psychology and consumer behavior is so interesting, and really, for me, quantifies a lot of reasons for the way in which I am, the way in which people are, and the way in which people behave. I believe that that is the right theory. The idea that it's about nature and nurture. It's about a multitude of things. It's not just black or white. For me, I love to hear that, and when he explained that to me, it made perfect sense. So I absolutely love Dr. Gad Saad. I'm going to post him down below. You might not agree with everything he says, but you can definitely learn a lot from him. So go check that stuff out. Today's video was made possible at Mulliganbrothers.com, where you can get the Inspire Change t-shirts and hoodies, but also the all-new Memento Mori poster to remind you that you are mortal. It's 80 years of tiny little squares plotted out in a frame, in a beautiful frame, and you cross out each little box, and each little box represents a week of your life. I have 30 years all plotted on there, and it's on my fridge every morning I wake up. I come and see it, and I cross it off once a week, and I'm reminded that one day I'm not going to fill in one of those boxes. And that's a stark reminder to look at every single day. And I told you, it's been the most successful tool for me over this last year. So if you want to buy that, go down to the link in the description and use code STOIC for 10% off. Guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.